Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and we are back with a brand new video. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the WWE Series 155 Sid Justice. Not Sid Vicious, not Psycho Sid, but Sid Justice. So, going back to the early 90s, Sid Udy, which was his real name. That was a little loud. I can't hope they didn't interfere with the video, but yeah, Sid Udy, one of the biggest stars of 90s wrestling, got started in the late 80s and really came into his own as one of the premier, big men of giants of his era in wrestling. When you look back at 90s wrestling, the really, I would say, giants in terms of just stature and their physical presence in wrestling were, limited to guys such as him. I would say Vader, Kevin Nash, Undertaker. They were just the guy, and then later, Kane as he came into being. Those were like the real, I would say, big men in wrestling of that era. Or some of the big men in wrestling of that era. Of course, there were a lot of big guys back in that era, but in terms of being a top guy, Sid was a top guy everywhere he went. And to get back to the Sid Justice name, this is the name he used when he first came to WWE in the early 90s, when he feuded with the likes of Hulk Hogan. I'm not the biggest Sid expert in terms of knowing everything about him, but he started off on at least a national basis, national fame, in WCW in the late 80s. He was a member of the Four Horsemen, and at that point he was going under the name of Sid Vicious in the NWA WCW. When he came to WWE, which I believe would have probably been around maybe 1991, maybe early, I think it was late 1991, he was going under the name of Sid Justice. And then when he came back to WWE because he went back to WCW, then when he came back to WWE in the mid 90s, he was known as Psycho Sid. So, lots of different aliases, names, really two names, really, because Sid Justice, he was never that again after the early 90s. So really, most wrestling fans, we think back to Sid, you either think of him under the Psycho Sid or Sid Vicious name, which those are two names that he had his most fame under. So this figure, it's a basic figure, and main event, same as basics, looks tremendous. I saw this a few weeks ago in Walmart, and I was like, man, this was just a good looking figure. We see the rest of the figures in this series: LA Knight, Jimmy Uso, Andrade, Laura Valkyria, and we see a signature move, the power bomb. He was, along with Kevin Nash, they were the two, along with Kevin Nash, and did Vader use a power bomb? I want to say Vader did, but those were the three guys that really, popularized the power bomb in professional wrestling in that era. And the power bomb back in the 90s, whether it was Kevin Nash, Vader, or Sid doing it, it felt like it was the most brutal move in the business. And Sid passed away last year at the age still relatively young. He was in his 60s, and he looked to be in great shape. He was attending wrestling conventions, and up until I think the week or two before he passed away, and I think he had some form of cancer, if I'm correct. But again, he was a guy who really just stood out when you saw him. If you grew up watching wrestling in the 90s, you could not forget Sid. He was a big name everywhere he went, and he was also one of the few wrestlers of that era to hold the world championship in both WCW and WWE. So again, just so I'll give you a little background on him, and now let's get into the figure. It is a very nice day out here. Actually, when I was coming out to do this video, a deer was running off into the backyard. It was crazy. There's that time of the day that was evening, so the deers were starting to, kind of go home, migrate home. But that was funny. I walked out and just saw the back of the deer, the running, and I saw a bunny too. So maybe they had a little play date or something. But interesting. So yeah, a very nice figure, and of course, being that it's Sid, this figure has bigger proportions than, say, your average wrestler. He definitely feels, a little taller than the normal figure. I like the chiseled physique. You know, the head scan is very, I mean, spot on for a basic figure. I mean, main event basic figure. This is, I mean, looks just like Sid to me. I like the hair, good attention to detail. You know, the menacing look, and that's one thing. Sid had such a physical charisma about him that he just stood off the screen whenever you saw him. And one thing about Sid, you know, a lot of fans, you know, with, I don't like to say the word smart fans, hardcore fans, but, you know, I think you may know what I'm talking about if you have been a, you know, fan of wrestling, but I just think that, you know, Sid, you know, a lot of people, even in his era and shortly after his era ended, because Sid, for all intents and purposes, his career ended in 2001 after he suffered that gruesome leg injury on the WCW pay-per-view, and then the company closed shop shortly after. But, you know, you always heard that Sid wasn't a good worker, he was such and such, and, you know, compared to, you know, the other guys, you know, Bretts and Shawns of that era and guys. But I don't care about that stuff. When I saw Sid on the screen, he entertained me, and when I go back and watch clips of him, the guy stands out from the crowd, and he was over. And that's the one thing, he was over. Whether he was in WWE, WCW, the guy was over, and that's why he was on the top of the cards everywhere he went. And to me, that's more important than any great, you know, 4-star, 5-star match. So just wanted to get that out there, a little rant. But yeah, really good figure, really good figure. And we got the blue, which is a color that you would not normally associate Sid with wearing, because Sid Vicious and Psycho Sid always wore the standard black vest, black trunks, and black boots, whereas this, when during Sid Justice, he had a little more colorful attire, so the Carolina blue trunks and knee pads. So just a really nice figure, really feels good, and really solid figure. Cannot say anything bad about this. Nice piece, because I do not have any, I think I only have one other Sid figure, and this one, the Psycho Sid Elite Flashback figures from back in the day. So nice to have this version of Sid to the collection. So that is it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. It has been feeling marvelous in North Carolina over the last, I would say, 2 weeks since we had this cool down in temperature. It is not blazing all day, so I'm definitely thankful for that. And again, just thank you all for watching this video. Thank you all for just rocking with me. I appreciate all the support, the comments, the feedback, the love you all show. I definitely just thank you from the bottom of my heart. As I always say, you could be watching 100 other videos, thousands of other videos, but you choose to watch this one, so I definitely thank you for that. And I'm repping the greatest college on earth, A&T. It's a Saturday, so I just really throw on some A&T attire and need a haircut, which I have the hat on. So again, just thank you all for watching this video, and I will talk to you again after a while.